Cam says, get the Gators helmet out of the way. We will get right to it. We will do that. But first, we will introduce the show, get you all set. Please hit the like button before you do anything. Might as well just get that out of the way. And yes, I made the comment a couple times last week that Duke was no joke. This show's not about Duke, but about Miami. And one of the roughest performances we've seen out of this football program in a long time. Cam Underwood's here to break it down for us and look ahead. More importantly, Cam, how you doing?
I am doing well. I feel good. I feel strong. I am having, thank you, a good day. Can't really complain. In that regard, in regards to the performance of the Miami Hurricanes, and just kind of the overall, to steal the name of the website, the State of the U, right now, there's much left to be desired.
I actually posted a video on Sunday that was kind of my thoughts on not making a critique of Mario Cristobal and his staff, but just kind of sizing up why this doesn't make sense. And, what has been a general pattern at the football program for the last 15 years or so. Regardless, this was another game in which, what my take is on college football and my approach. I'm watching the best teams and the best games and that sort of thing. But when I see that going down, then I tend to start to check in. And I have found a channel on my cable system that shows the ESPN3 games. So I had it.
Oh, that's fun.
It's a very odd. It's called Bally Sports. And they show ESPN3 games. So
that's the regional sport. That's like your new Raycom Sports or whatever. So
okay. So I recorded the game.
Yeah.
And I watched some of it live anyway. And that is just a head scratcher of lack of preparation, execution, want to all of it roll together.
Yeah, no. So that's Bally Sports is your new regional sports network people. And it was not great. There were tons of turnovers, program record, I believe 8. I'm not 100% sure. And we had this conversation in the press box because one of the, career journalists sitting in front of the sports information staff asked, hey, this seems like a lot of turnovers. Sports information did not have that information, which, hey, so we were talking about it and I was just like, hey, shout out to my boy Bailey. But we look at, different things when we discuss sports in the party chat when we're, playing games, video games, that is, so I used those well-honed skills and I looked up a bunch of stuff and also, like the media guide and whatnot. So the last 2 games of the 1944 season, Miami threw 7 interceptions in each of those 2 games. There was 3 games, one in 1982 and one in 80, I want to say. It was like 64, 72, and 80. In each of those 3 games, Miami had 6 lost fumbles. I do not know the rest of what happened in those games because there's no box scores online that were accessible to me at that time, and maybe that I could use a different search method. But unless they had more turnovers on top of the 7 interceptions in each of the last 2 games, that was against Tulsa and Texas A&M, in case you were wondering, in 1944, and or had 3 or more interceptions in either of the 3 games in 64, 72, and 80, then I believe that the 8 is a program record. I'm not 100% sure, again, because I don't have the box scores, but at least in the modern era, if you want to say after 1980, when we have box scores, it's unequivocally a program record for turnovers. Although, again, the 5 lost fumbles falls short of the all-time program record of 6 in those 3 other games. but yeah, it was just so there were 8 turnovers. There were 2 failed fourth down attempts. So turnovers on downs. I count those as turnovers. So you have a reasonable case to say 10. And one of those fourth downs that was not converted was called an interception on the field and overturned to incomplete. And so the real conversation, because that was 8 at the time, and that's when we started asking the SIDs about, hey, is that the record? And then Jay Garcia was just like, oh, okay, cool. I'm going to give you an actual 8th. So, hey, there you go. So yeah, man, it was just not good at all. But it was a 21-17 game in the third quarter with Miami leading, and that's after Tyler Van Dyke left the game. You know what I mean? But from there, it harkened back to the Michigan State game from last year. And Duke scores the final 28 points and ends up with a 24-point victory. And that team unequivocally quit on the field on the fourth quarter. Asked Cristobal about it. He said, hey, if we see that on film, it's going to be shout out to Bobby Ross, who once coached the Detroit Lions and said something similar. Said, they're going to get a quick bus ticket out of town. Cristobal on Monday said, we didn't see any lack of effort or da-da. I'm like, that's the coach answer, but like, fam, we watched it. Like, I'm not there. Nah. But it was bad, and obviously, some were errors of technique, some were just like miscommunications, but credit to Duke for making all of those plays and everything. But like, Jalen Knighton fumbled for the third time in 4 weeks. Why is he still getting snaps at all at this point? Honestly, you continue to give the ball to the other team. Thad Franklin, a healthy scratch, and we were talking about it in the press box. Is Thad Franklin out there? Or he's standing right there at the 30-yard line with his helmet in his right hand. There. So a healthy scratch. Gets 0 carries. You give Lucius Stanley a couple carries, the walk-on transfer from UAB. But Thad Franklin can't get any, but you keep putting Knighton back in the game after he gives the ball up. Time after time after time. And again, if it was once, maybe. Excuse me, but you know what they say? Once is an accident, twice is a trend, 3 times is evidence. And it's 3 times this season with other instances previously. Until you prove that you can hold on to the ball, buddy, you got to find the sideline. And I mean by the sideline, I mean a bench. Or he should be standing over there with his helmet in his hand or something. Now, I don't know if Thad Franklin had something else that he was being disciplined for being a healthy scratch and whatever, but that's unacceptable. Keyshawn Smith, and both Keyshawn Smith's and Jalen Knighton's fumbles were caused by carrying the ball in the incorrect arm. So they're guys who carry the ball in the right hand only. They don't switch the ball. So it ends up being the inside arm. So Keyshawn Smith took a kickoff return from the right hash mark, basically, and he goes and he weaves his way to the left, and now all of a sudden he's running and the ball's right there in front of the defenders. Well, bang, let me get that turnover. Now, I'm not saying it's 100% assured that he doesn't fumble that ball if the ball's in his left hand, but like, that's easy. That's an easy technique switch, right? Boom. Hey, if you're going that way, whichever way you're running, right or left, that's the arm it should be in because it puts your body between the defenders and the ball. It's just like, and I know people think, you never play football. Whatever. I did play basketball and I was damn good. So you're not going to dribble down the court with your left hand and put the ball in front of the defender. Let me get that. No. Look at Mark Jackson. Look at Magic Johnson. Look at any point guard, bro. When you get guarded close, what do? Okay, I'm going to pound that and I'm going to put my whole body in front of you so you can reach through. And now if you reach, I'm going to go by or get you on a foul. But I'm not going to put the ball right in front of your face unless maybe I got it on a string and I got a low cross for you. But if I don't, I'm not going to put the ball out there like that. But they're doing the same thing in terms of where they carry the ball and how they're moving on the football field, both Jalen Knighton and Keyshawn Smith. And that was a thing that had to have been seen on film because those defenders weren't even trying to tackle them. They went straight for the ball and they got it both times, right? Then, Tyler Van Dyke, they brought a super complex pressure. Our offensive line has 3 starters still. I mean, they got guys starting, but they're not starters. Got overwhelmed, trying to roll away from it. Probably should have thrown it away. Doesn't. Get sacked, fumble. They recover deep in our territory, and now he's injured because he had added 600 pounds on top of him. He fell directly on his throwing shoulder, and what is it? Force equals mass times acceleration. Hey, like all that force, so you're going to the ground and you're accelerating at 9.81 meters per second squared, gravity going towards the ground on top of them driving you with additional acceleration. So like that's going to probably hurt. He was seen on campus on Monday in a sling. Mario Cristobal said that he's done some stuff this week. I don't think that Tyler Van Dyke is playing this week. I don't think we're going to see Tyler Van Dyke for probably a couple weeks. That's myself personally, not going off of anything other than having seen other people have these kinds of injuries. But in comes Jake Garcia, does some good things, 64% completions for the year, 2 touchdowns on the day, but 5 of the 8 turnovers, 2 fumbles, 3 interceptions. One was a clear miscommunication. Frank Ladson ran a go route and Garcia threw a flag like to the corner, a corner route. Defender's right there, receiver's not. Okay, but yeah, and it just kind of snowballed. I'm going to read to you the lengths of the drives for Duke to score points. Let's see. Nope, that's on this side. 23 yards for a touchdown, 22 yards for a touchdown, -1 yard for a field goal. 18 plays, 79 yards for a touchdown. That was their one drive. 56 for a touchdown, 25 for a touchdown. Those were the scoring drives. You get one super long 9.5-minute drive, but other than that, the defense actually kind of played really well. And again, you're in that game and leading 21-17. But, shout out to Chinua Achebe, but sometimes things fall apart, and they definitely did on Saturday.
So when Mario makes the comment about the effort being there and that not being an issue, I can understand him saying that.
Yeah.
Because he opens up all sorts of issues if he admits to a team that's not trying.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, like I said, it's what he should have said. But yeah.
Yeah.
James Hennessy, great question. Thank you for the super chat. How many roster spots are turned over next year? This comes from a Twitter conversation that I saw and butted into because I saw somebody else, or it was asked to someone else, but I saw it and I was like, hey, you didn't ask me, but I'm going to give my opinion. So take it for what you want, ignore it, like whatever. I mean, clearly, like obviously going to ignore my opinion. But Miami took 11 transfer portal players coming into this season. I could easily see that doubled going into next year. And my good friend Bud Elliott came back and he said, wait, what? And I was like, what? He's like, so like, is Cristobal under like win now pressure? Like I thought this was going to be built through high school, like prep recruiting and da-da. I believe that the goal is to really rebuild through recruiting as the foundation of talent acquisition. That being said, I think that there's going to be so many defections. I think that there are people who have either figured out that they need to go seek shelters elsewhere, or they're going to be told that maybe continuing their journey elsewhere would be most advantageous for all parties involved. That to get to the number of scholarship players to be a functional program, you're going to need numbers from the portal. That, and as well, Cristobal is a noted great recruiter. It would not surprise me if there are players in other places who otherwise would have been at Miami if Cristobal was at Miami and might elect a la Frank Ladson, a la Tyreek Stevenson, a la Jonathan Dennis, a la Henry Parrish. Players might follow their path and say, hey, yeah, I was playing somewhere else, but now there's a coach building the kind of program that I want to play for, that I was hoping that Miami would have. And for that reason, I'm either going to go to or return home to Miami through the transfer portal. So I think that there's going to be more, because I also do not think that Miami's going to add massive numbers in the recruiting class this year, even though there's these next 2 years, this year, next year, uncapped recruiting years, as in you can sign as many players from wherever, that's high school or portal, to go up to and including your 85 scholarship limit. So if you have 55 open scholarships, you can go get 55 players from wherever this year and next year. I just don't think that you're going to find whatever the number is, right? Let's say we have 40 scholarship spots open this year. I don't think that you're finding 40 high school players of the caliber that you want and need to fill that. So you're going to bring in the high caliber guys that you can get and then fill the rest of those through the transfer portal in the ways that I have outlined.
Briley makes a comment here reviewing the status of the last 5 recruiting classes that make up this roster, the 77th most difficult schedule in the nation. And then we see what the record is at 2 and
3
and 4. 3 and
Yeah.
4.
3 and 4. Yeah. It is. And, I've bemoaned the player progression and development at Miami for years, and you're seeing some of that as well. Yes, there are players who were highly touted, who were, being recruited by everybody in America. And I don't think that they have developed into the kind of player that they had the potential to be when they came to Miami. I also think that there's some soft mentalities in this locker room, to be perfectly honest. And I mean, even with that being said, though, yeah, it is on coaching. It's not just on. I mean, it's deeper than rap. It's like it's really systemic at this point. And again, I thought that this was maybe more countertops and repainting the cabinet faces in the kitchen kind of touch up, but this is not even a gut renovation like down to the studs. Like, this to me is, we're going to raise it to the ground. This is a full tear down, pour a new foundation, because the house that stood here on this beautiful lot, I watch all the real estate, shows and everything, right? So pretend, and I've seen this, they have the $1 million listing Los Angeles. Okay, there's a barely 2,000 square foot place in the Beverly Hills Flats on this gigantic lot. Yeah, there are people who might want to keep it as it was and kind of, touch up the antique nature. But then there's also developers who are like, no, we're going to tear that down to the ground. We're going to pour a new foundation. We're going to build it. We're going to, excavate out a massive basement, and we're going to make this 75, 100 or 10,000 square foot modern masterpiece. And that's going to take time, but after putting that investment in and all of that work, now you're going to be left with something that's so incredible that you will not ever miss what once stood there. And I believe that has to be, by the way that things are going. I think that informs the fact that Mark Cristobal looks at, and he keeps saying, there's so many things that's not been to the standard, and there's a lot, and I'm not going to go down the list, but there's so many things that aren't where they need to be and weren't where they need to be. And it's been that way for so long that, yeah, he's not looking at countertops and kitchen cabinets. He's looking at this as a complete, to the ground, to the sand, dirt, tear down and rebuild. And it is painful going through that change right now, because we are seeing the fruits of that. Or we're not seeing the fruits of that. We're seeing these seeds being planted, and we need to wait, a couple mango seasons for the tree to grow and then the fruit to bloom.
So a couple somewhat counters to that, or just responses to that before we get to this super chat, would be, I posted this video. I did a comparison that's pretty easy to see between what Mike Elko's doing at Duke versus what Mario Cristobal is doing at Miami. And again, I am not making a comparison to say Mike Elko is a better head coach than Mario Cristobal. I'm not saying that this is a finished, completed work by either coach or anything like that. Just throwing it out there to say this is the comparison as it stands right now between two head coaches in their first years at two programs. One is coming into a better situation from a talent perspective, if that's all you look at. Clearly, counted up the total team composite ranking, I believe was 13th for Miami and like 61 for Duke. Duke has 2 4-stars and Miami has 44 4-stars. Mike Elko's never been a head coach before. And this team, regardless of where they finish the season, they're 5-3 right now. They're competing every week. They're playing well. They're playing capably against anybody they play. They're showing up versus Miami giving us what they've given us. So the second part of that, so that's just a kind of a statement. The second part of that would be to take your housing analogy. Isn't it possible to coach up the guys that you have currently to be better football players and a more cohesive unit, especially since it wasn't like we were watching 2021 Kansas last year or Rutgers or Illinois or fill in the blank of the worst teams in the Power Five. We were watching a team that was capable of beating NC State and Pitt and so forth, even with the coaching deficiencies they had, that they could coach up the current team while tearing down. It's like they could almost kind of shut off part of the house and say,
Right.
We're going to make this aesthetically pleasing to the people that are going to see this part of it while we're completely reconstructing over here.
Right. We're going to get Thanksgiving dinner delivered, but we have a beautiful kitchen or a living room, dining room area to hang out, flat screens over here and everything while we're remodeling the kitchen. So no, you don't got to go over there because we can bring the food in and get it catered. And one would think, but clearly, no. I mean, it's just not there. Now, are there players who are improving? Absolutely. And you could see, you're starting to see Mario's guys impact the game more. I was talking about Nigel Kelly and Wesley Basaint, stepping into a not starting role, but like starters level of snaps, I think he played like 38, 44 snaps or something on Saturday. That's a good fair amount, Akeem Mesidor. I mean, yeah, he was all conference at West Virginia and they were really sad to lose him, but you see why, but that's a guy who's foundational. A Cam Kinchins, I know, even with making some mistakes. A James Williams, I know, even making some mistakes, you still see them impacting games, even as they're growing. And I mean, it's, again, do not let perfect be the enemy of good or great be the enemy of good. Like, I mean, there's still things that those players, you're seeing. I mean, hell, even a Colby Young, and that's crazy that a guy from Lackawanna Junior College just comes in and now he's the guy at receiver. You know what I mean? But as you're looking, all of those names and like a lot of the guys who are having positive, Jaleel Skinner, as Will Mallory was out for a little bit and now Elijah Arroyo was out for the year. He's stepping up. So you can see the little oases in the desert of the performance of the team. Right. And as you look in those places, you see, okay, a Leonard Taylor is a 5-star. He would have gone anywhere. Everybody was recruiting him. Then, you bring down Daryl Jackson, from Tennessee. That's a portal guy. That's a Mario dude. So you can see these little spotlights in the darkness. And the hope is that you continue the development. And I know a lot of people are talking about the way that Oregon is playing right now. Oregon is in year 5 of Cristobal players because the large majority of that recruiting class that are freshmen there now were recruited by Cristobal before he left. And then the 4 years prior, also. So that's they're in year 5 of Cristobal players. Now, yeah, they did add a couple, and there's been development and but like again, 3 Pac-12 championship games, 2 Rose Bowl wins. You can see what it is that you want to achieve. Sorry, 1 Rose Bowl win, 2 Rose Bowl appearances. Sorry, you're correct. But or was it just 1 Rose Bowl appearance?
Yeah.
It was just 1. Okay, 1 and 1. But hey, you got there once
Yes.
and you won it.
Another
But
another major bowl fiesta.
okay, so yeah, 2 New Year's 6 wins, or Rose Bowl and Fiesta. Okay, there it is. But when you stack those classes and you develop those guys consistently over time, you get there. But again, you're pretty much starting from the foundation. So we're going, brick by brick, nail by nail to build it to where it needs to be.
Knox Kane 94. Appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for the contribution, sir. Appreciate that. Or, well, I will take the 93% certainty based on our channel demographics that
Right.
it is a sir. Okay.
Sir or madam.
Last 15 years, I don't know that this takes us anywhere that you haven't covered, but of course, we want to honor the super chat. Last 15 years, great players, but bad coaches. This year, our players suck. Not the coach's fault. All of a sudden, anything else?
No, I mean, like there is enough blame to go around. This is not a single source error situation. Whether it's figuring out how to coach this team currently, about the plays to call to get them to do the things, the internal development in practice, the the rotation of the players, the performance of the players, like everybody wants it to be one thing because it's easier to fix one thing. It ain't one thing. Everybody has a hand in it. But now the only thing I will say is you will trust a little bit more this coaching staff, who's more proven and demonstrated excellence than any staff we've had recently, including Mark Richt, because Mark Richt was in the latter part of his career. He was coasting to retirement. So it's their fault for not getting them there now, but you have to kind of obligate them and trust them in that it is not where it needs to be now, but we are taking steps along a path to get there. And you also have to kind of take it on faith that the steps being taken there are outside of games, because games are the single data point that we get to see, because like we don't get to see, the work in the film room. We don't get to see the practice. We don't get to see the off-season program, the fourth quarter program, whatever they call it, like all those other things. You have to take it on faith that like, you go down that path and you have an idea. So when I taught choir, right, my choir didn't necessarily have all the experience. I had to coach them up. I had to teach them. But in my head, I had that sound of what it needs to be at the end. So we're going through the vocalises, we're going through all these things, we're going through the tips, tricks, techniques, alignment, assignment technique in football, right? So you're going through all these things to give them the skills to then layer on, in my case, the music, in this case, the plays, and being able to react to the plays, so that when it comes time for that performance, whether that's on the stage or the field at Hard Rock or wherever else around the country, that hopefully it comes together beforehand, so then you are ready. But you have to have the sight and the vision to go through the growth process, the growth and development and teaching process for, okay, we're not there now, but I know that you have the ability to get there, and I'm going to design this program to step along that path so that when it's time to be there, it gets there. Now, obviously on Saturdays this season, we're not there, but I don't say that to say that the Saturdays this season are the entire picture. You have to trust the demonstrated work product and just overall schematic, ideal of Cristobal, and say, yes, we're not there, but the way that we built that team, those teams that won the Pac-12 and then went to and played in and won New Year's 6 games, that's what I have in my head over here. I just need you to take a step or two, a leap maybe, leap and a bound forward along that path, but I don't need you to have the full picture, because I have the whole picture over here. but we need to get there by taking progressional steps. So you have to take it on faith that everything will eventually lead there. Do I want it to be, I mean, yesterday? Yes. But at this point, you have to take it on faith that the way that the program is being structured by the person and people who are running it is true for a reason, and give them the time to get there, because obviously it's not there now. And so we have to continue to do that. And I mean, I don't know if it's going to be this year, next year, whenever, but a part of that, just like I wrote in the recruiting rules, is going to have to be winning games. It's going to have to be proof of concept that we are doing this, and we suffered through the growing pains, right, of the 2022 season to get to that 2023 ACC championship, that 2024 whatever, right? So it does ask you to step out on faith. It does. But you can't then go back and say, well, you know, we're excited for getting Mario Cristobal in January, in December, and say, well, he did da 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 da, and we're going to have that happen, but then turn tail at the first sign of adversity. I just don't think that that's wise, but yeah.
James, thank you so much again for the contribution. Mario is not flexible in building doesn't mean he's bad.
Yeah, and again, that's just going back to what I was saying. He has a clear view, an idea of how to build a program, how to get the program to where he's had, I mean, where he had Oregon, and, you know, infusing that with, you know, his other coaching experience. And again, this goes back, y'all are going to hate me, I don't care. This goes back to what Al Golden used to say, of trust the process. So you have to buy in. And now Mario Cristobal is not a slogan guy, so I'm not saying it's the same, but hopefully the process, the scheme, the ideal, the paradigm ends up working out. But you have to be true to that. And, you know, hopefully Mario will be flexible and adapt the process, the paradigm moving forward, because again, if you're not getting the results, you need to change the process. I know that we're in, you know, you can call it year zero. Like, yeah, this is we're tearing it down to the foundation year. I would hope that there's an update to the offense moving forward from just, and I think that we've seen that, you know, we're going more at tempo after we get a first down. We're going, you know, more pass heavy just because we can't run the ball. But now if you develop the offensive line, you're able to run the ball, and now you can do some different things that will also, you know, the performance will, you know, impact the paradigm, I think. But, you know, I hope that updates. But yeah, you have to have a clear mentality on how you're going to do something. And I don't think that he's wrong for not being flexible, because it's like, no, this is the process, and we're going to, or whatever you want to call it, this is the scheme, and we're going to, you know, follow those blueprints while we rebuild this house. It does just take time. So we'll see.
I only want to take this in reverse for a quick diversion, and we'll bring it back to 22. But you brought up Mark Richt, and this never hit me before. But do you think he took that job thinking, I'm not a 10-year coach, I'm not a 15-year coach, this is my alma mater, there's been a slide for 15 plus years, I may not be the guy to get this program to the promised land, but I want to bring it to a high level and leave it for the next guy, and that's my goal?
Yeah, I don't think that he thought he was a 15-year coach when he came here. I don't think that. I thought, I mean, maybe he was a 5 to 10-year coach, you know. I didn't think that he was a, you know, like a 15, 20-year coach. Like, yeah, I'm going to build a legacy that rivals or exceeds, you know, Schnellenberger and, you know, Johnson and Davis and everybody put together. But yeah, I think that, you know, he knew the way that he wanted to run things, and it went well for that one season for the majority of 2017. And, you know, to the point, like I was talking about with Cristobal, about updating the scheme and things like that, that is uncomfortable, that is work and, everything. And I just think at that point, Mark Richt just wasn't in there. He wasn't there to do that, to give up play calling, to fire his son, to bring in a play calling offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, things like that. I mean, that would have been a big schematic change and, relinquishing some control of the program that he came to Miami specifically for, because we didn't have a coach as good as him. And, they made him pass the sticks up off the offense when he was at Georgia. He's like, well, I have the leverage. I won, 9, 10, 11 games so many times at Georgia that I can dictate that I'm going, to have that ability and not have oversight, taking that away from me. So, yeah, I don't think that he was, when it became apparent that it was going to take a little bit more than just kind of steering straight, like, oh, the yacht is going and everybody's where they need to be, and I just need to keep my hands on the steering wheel and just make sure that it doesn't crash. That's one thing. But okay, now I got to maneuver that thing and I got to move around these other boats and I got to go dock and I got to hey, I've done all that. I don't need to do that. And I think that that's really where things, went there the way that it did with Mark Richt.
I brought up Mike Elko. Sonny Dykes is another guy. Well, he's been at a number of lower level kind of stops. Cal, SMU, Louisiana Tech. He's been a winner at 2 of those 3 stops, not at the Pac-12.
Right.
But, TCU went 5-7 last year. They've been a 500 team after having that really good run under Gary Patterson about for 3 or 4 years. They've been fairly marginal, 5-6 wins. And I don't want to blow out of proportion 7 games, but that's what we have to work with right now. That's what the track record of the resume is. And, you see a guy like that, boom, he takes over TCU. They're beating good teams. They're 7-0.
Yeah, man. I mean, they're playing a very exciting brand of football. And they are playing at a very high level versus the competition that they're playing. Relative to the talent that they have, relative to the talent that the opposition has. Miami has not really played to the level of talent. It's not been at a, 97% performance rating, doing your jobs and all those kind of things. And that's hopefully where things will change, because, yeah, I know that players who are here have not developed, and hopefully either if they stay here, they do develop, or the new guys who come in, develop in their place. But if you look at, if you asked Miami players to self-grade their games, you're going to get a lot of 60s, some 70s, and, for whatever reason, Sonny Dykes, if you ask TCU players this year, be like, oh yeah, no, I played a 99 game. I played a 88 game, but, Ladarius behind me, he picked up, the 12% or whatever that I came up short. Like he picked it up, and if he didn't, then somebody else did. But yeah, on D line, we were all 88 or above. They were literally, so they're playing at such a high level compared to their level of talent. That's infectious, and they're playing really well. And then the scheme is obviously helping them in the Dykes offense. But, relative to the level of talent and ability, Miami, yeah, there's just been very deficient in their performances for a long time. And that's really, really painfully obvious this year.
Miami Live, folks, every Wednesday, 7 Eastern time, right here at the Voice for College Football. We appreciate you being here. Bring some folks with you next week. You still have maybe 20 minutes or so to do it this week. Please hit the like button as well. And we appreciate these super chat contributions. Keep in mind, Cam gives us an hour plus per week. And with all the communications that are involved, and even beyond the time, as I state once in a while, way beyond the time, the values in the expertise, the insight, the storytelling, and everything that Cam brings to the table. This is an interesting situation here with Josh Gaddis, because none of us know for sure how much of that was Jim Harbaugh's offense, how much of it was Josh Gaddis changing, developing, tweaking, to what extent. versus now what he's doing with Miami?
I mean, you don't win the Bros Award if you don't coach well. So the fact of calling it meaningless, I just push back on that. Gaddis is, I mean, we're hamstrung a little bit by some player deficiencies, to be perfectly honest. But he's updated what he's doing. I mean, there have been some times where it's been the same, Rhett Lashley inside zone on 4th down things because take it on faith. Hey, maybe we can get some push on this play. No, we can't. But there were 4 times I can remember where you have a pass play called with a crosser tagged in there. Just, a shallow cross, whatever, normal check down. Duke plays a lot of man-to-man, so you want to run crossers, you want to run mesh and things like that. There were 4 specific times that I remember during the game, and I was saying this in the press box, with a crosser coming from quarterback's right to left, butt naked, wide open, and he didn't throw the ball to him. Now, one was a throw to Jaleel Skinner that came late. Like, it was look, saw him, looked off, came back, scrambled to, it was when Tyler was in there, scrambled to his left and threw it to Jaleel behind him and late. And he was wide open on the left or right-left crosser. There was Jake Garcia missed 3 such crossers. Now, and all those plays ended up either incomplete or intercepted, right? But you got to hit the guys there. Conversely, and it's easier for a right-handed quarterback to throw the left-right crosser, the one that's coming across towards their arm side, just because, if you're looking that way. But, Will Mallory's touchdown was on a crosser from the left to the right, So I say that to say that Josh Gaddis schemed guys open, and the quarterbacks either elected not to or were unable to hit them there, and there were other times as well. So again, I'm not saying things are perfect, but by saying he doesn't know what he's doing and it was all Jim Harbaugh and like miss me.
James coming back. Appreciate you, James. Thank you for that. Realistic expectations for 2023.
In the terms of recruiting, that's this current recruiting class. Realistic expectation is top 10 for that class with a couple additions. I don't know who that might be. And yes, that's excluding games. That is selling them, ice cream on a cold day. Like, hey, come on down here and help change things. For one, on the field, it has to be a step forward. A really realistic expectation. I mean, depending on how the season ends and who comes back, but it's not unreasonable to expect 8 wins. It's not the number I want to say, but I mean, we're playing the drive for 6 this year, the search for 6 wins to make a bowl game, which, unless things change drastically, is a search that I think is going to be fruitless for 6 wins this year. So stepping forward, let's say that Miami wins, if it's 1 or 2 more of these 5 games. So you're talking either 4 wins or 5 wins. So either +3 or double. I mean, depending on, how the roster looks, I think that would be a reasonable expectation. But I mean, and this is not where I want to be. Obviously, I want to be, oh, hey, we're talking about ACC championship. We're talking about playoff. We're talking about da-da-da-da. But realistically, I mean, a step forward is still a step. And then hopefully you get another really solid recruiting class in 24, which is, as per usual, loaded in South Florida, and then really start pushing. But yeah, you're going to have to see proof of concept, as in young players making plays, losses that happen this year turning into wins next year, and continuing on an upward trajectory. That has to be I think that is a realistic expectation, and it has to come to fruition. It just does.
This team is such a wild card.
Oh, yeah.
They should beat Virginia and Georgia Tech even on the road. They should. starting there, just start
They
there.
should,
And then,
but Georgia Tech is way more of a toss-up now than it was when Jeff Collins was their coach.
yep.
That's not a guaranteed win, whether it was Manny Diaz or Mario Cristobal. That's not guaranteed. And Virginia is abjectly terrible, but like Miami is like abjectly terrible minus or plus, like barely better. So you could easily go in there. I mean, I think that the only way that you beat Florida State is rivalry games. And, an unexpected result happens. You're not beating Clemson, and you're likely not going to beat Pittsburgh in the finale. Now, you could, but as I sit here right now, I see if you need out of those five, and I'm going to run them down for you again in order: at Virginia, Florida State, at Georgia Tech, at Clemson, Pittsburgh. Those are the next 5 games. If you need 3, I see one in a possible. That one being Virginia, the possible being Georgia Tech. I don't see Miami beating any of those other teams. Not the way that Miami has been playing in wins or losses. So something has to dramatically and drastically change. So again, boom. And if you scroll down there, you're going to see those are your 5 games. You need 3 solid. I see one in a possible. That means the search for 6 is going to end up continuing up to next year. So, I don't, as I sit here right now on October 26th, I don't see Miami bowling. I don't see it, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I get it. And I was going to make a comparison that doesn't work. So I was about to say, isn't Florida State right now playing at about the level that Miami was at this point last season? And isn't Miami playing at about the level that Florida State was last season? And therefore, it's
the inverted result would happen because the inverted paths.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Although I don't know that Miami's playing at Florida State's level of last season, because even though they were losing games, they played Clemson tough. They played a lot of teams tough. We're not seeing that necessarily every week out of Miami.
Exactly. And I mean, you got the Spider-Man looking at Spider-Man game with Texas A&M, because both of these teams, us and them are both 3-4. So you think that close loss, would be a springboard forward, because they're a very talented team and we expect them to be good, and they're very talented, but bad. So yeah, even the thing you might have looked at one time as a moral victory is really standing out as like a really glaring loss, because that's not a good team. And even though you played them close, you lost to a bad team and have lost to other random teams. So yeah, there's much to be desired. There's been much left. So, we'll see.
Yeah. Miami, Texas A&M, Oklahoma. Those are some of the big major disappointments across college football. Yeah. Texas A&M. Wow. They're just a collection of like talented guys out there that just, when you put it all together, doesn't amount to much.
Hey, 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 hey. If you know the end of that line, that's Texas A&M right now. Smoke weed every day. Yeah. But yeah, so Miami travels up to, what's going on, Kings Dolphin 1989. Miami goes up to Charlottesville to play Virginia this weekend. The Tony Elliott offense is pedantic, very plodding, has really taken away the explosion of Brennan Armstrong.
Yeah.
He's talented, he's athletic, like we'll see that, he'll move around and everything. But yeah, this is a pillow fight. Like, these are 2 of the worst teams in the conference matching up. And, it makes sense that it's a Bally Sports 12:30 game this week. So, that's the 3rd or 4th in a row for Miami. A departure from that next week, I don't know if I was going to say a blessed departure, but I don't know how excited I am about it. But Miami and Florida State is the ABC national game next weekend. So, we'll see about that. And the thing to remember is football games are television shows to networks. They don't care about the history and the it is a television show, and for that reason, Miami Florida State got the primetime game. And some of the SEC games have already been earmarked elsewhere. Well, yeah, SEC and Big Ten. They're Big Ten trying to do the noon thing for their big games, and SEC at 3:30, and then you can rotate through. All the conferences for the night game, even including those conferences. But if they haven't already earmarked those, so yeah, I mean Miami, Florida State, again, not that either team has been very good recently. And then I will say, Florida State has been better this year, which vexes my spirit. But you're gonna find people across the country. Oh, Miami, Florida, that's usually a good game, or I've heard of that, or like da da da, and they're going to turn. It's not going to do the biggest rating numbers ever, but it's a television show, and you have a name brand matchup. Miami and Florida State. Oh, bang. Okay, well, I'm flipping around. Oh, yeah. Boom. Now, they might not stay watching because it's going to be bad. But, again, for scheduling and for, placement purposes, college football games or all games are television shows. So remember that. And that's the reason why Miami and Florida State, which we're going to talk about for 2 hours next week or whatever. But, yeah, so it is at that time. But yeah, to Charles Johnson's point, Virginia's not looked good, and neither have we. I mean, I would put, both teams near each other in the power rankings of the ACC. I mean, like what, 11, 12, 12, 13? I mean, not good. I mean, out of the 14 teams in the league, they're, us and them are pretty bad. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to be a game of two bad teams, and likely a backup quarterback in Jake Garcia, because I get Mario Cristobal, his reticence to come out and give an update, but unless Tyler Van Dyke is Wolverine and can like self-regenerate and heal at that kind of rapid rate, not a medical professional, just a guy who's watched a lot of sports and seen a lot of dudes get injured, I don't see any possible way that he plays on Saturday. After the way that he laid on that field, after the way he was coming off, had his arm supported, so because he couldn't let his arm hang because that injury on the shoulder, just letting it hang again, even as you're walking, you're still accelerating towards the ground, 9.81 meters per second squared. So that would have, basically been dragging his arm down. So he has, bent up and then held up by a Miami staffer. And then, the team doctor, orthopedic surgeon, Lee Kaplan, is walking off with him and everything. I just don't see any way that Tyler Van Dyke plays. And if he does, then he is one of the fastest healing humans ever in the history of humanity. But yeah, it's going to be the Jake Garcia show. You're probably going to get some more Jakari Brown. And it is Jakari, even though it's spelled with a U. I don't know. Hey, but, he's up against his redshirt limit. And I would really like to not burn his red shirt, but I don't see any way that we don't at this point. So yeah, I mean, you're going to get Jake Garcia as QB1. You're going to get the UPS Express package. What can Brown do for you? For Jakari coming in there to, play kind of discount Cam Newton and run the single wing and inverted veer and quarterback power and everything. I'll be interested to see what happens in the passing game, because Colby Young, you're almost getting to Randy ratio target. Well, not really in terms of targets. He had 9 targets on Saturday. And then Frank Ladson had 7. Jacoby George had 6. And then just a kind of mismatch to get to the rest of them. So, I mean, he had more than anybody, but like not super duper 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 more. But I'm interested to see what can happen in the pass game, because I know that Virginia is going to probably bracket him and double him and things like that. So, and just to see if there's any kind of step forward. To James Hennessy's point, King healed fast last year. It was bad because De'Aaron King wasn't fully healed even, and he even said that. He's like, I mean, yeah, I'm out there 85% or whatever, and then yeah, his season was over. So yeah, I mean, he healed. It was remarkable that he even got back on the field to start last season. But yeah, I mean, but that was still months, not 7 days from whatever injury was sustained that they're not telling. I mean, not detailing to us, but the injury that Tyler sustained that we all saw.
Cam, look at this regression. You bring up Brennan Armstrong.
Oh boy.
This is remarkable.
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers I'm going to see him, but it's pretty bad.
So,
yeah.
So he has thrown almost exactly half as many passes this season as last season, even though we're 7 games into an 11-game season. So he played only 11 of 12. So his numbers could have really been crazy last year. If he threw for 4,500 yards in 11 games, if they're going to a bowl game and 13 games, he's tacking on another 600. He led the nation in yardage per game last year. Through 31 TDs, he's got 6 in half as many pass attempts.
Less than half as many, and almost the same number of interceptions. I mean, just again, look at the last, 2021, 2022. Just look at the regression, look at the change. And I mean, and then you see, what's his name? Schrader up at Syracuse doing numbers. Why? Robert Anai, the coordinator who was at Virginia, is where? Syracuse. Like, it's not hard to see. And then also, I am still firmly of the belief that Clemson needs to change and go to go to the club level for Kate Klubnik and get rid of DJ, because we've seen that movie. He's not that guy. And I get Dabo supporting it. Oh, he's our quarterback. Wrong. Kate Klubnik is the dude for you. But you have to see DJ's progression a little bit as getting rid of Tony Elliott as offensive coordinator, because you see how he's hamstrung Armstrong in the numbers that were just on the screen, and you see how DJ's taking a step. He's not great, and they ask him to do certain things, and he does those certain things really well. But you see a clear step when that dude is gone. You know what I mean? So like, you're a net negative where you go to, and a net positive addition by subtraction where you came from by not being there. Broski, hello, like, come on.
Yes, Charles. We are aware Virginia's best offensive lineman, their center. He's a Remington finalist last year. Uluwatimi is his last name, went to Michigan. But also Brendan Armstrong's 3 top receiving threats all came back. Really good players, Dontavian Wicks, Keaton Thompson. Now, Billy Kemp must be injured. Their tight end, because he's only caught 5 balls this year. But
Billy Kemp is a wide receiver. He's like a 5.
Oh, Billy Kemp. Yes, I'm thinking of anyway, I don't know who I'm thinking of as the time. Anyway,
number 4.
Yes.
And they had that like 7 foot tall left tackle who's somewhere else also. Oh, Virginia did. Like 6'10", 6'11", or what? 6'10", I think. They had an offensive lineman, another one who also left. So I mean, yeah, one would think maybe, possibly, but I mean, a full game of Jake Garcia. What does that mean for the offense? Now you have 2 weeks, 2 full game tapes of Colby Young. Is he still able to produce at that level? You know what I mean? Maybe. So I think that the defense can be okay, but if you keep giving the opposing team 25, 26, 40 yards to score, that's not sustainable for success. I mean, even in the short term, let alone, a medium or long term. So, we'll see. I mean, I'm interested to see this game. I mean, I'm going to watch it. We're going to talk about it and everything. But if Miami finds a way to lose this game, I think that regardless of it being year 0 and building and like, I could see the wheels coming off of this season if they lose. Or somebody yells and screams, and then they kind of, puke and rally and get back to the party. I don't know. But yeah, it's just I said it last week. If you're counting to 6, you have to have the Duke game. Okay. You lose that one. If you're counting to 6 now with the 5 that we have left and the way that we're looking and the injury issues at multiple positions and things like that, I don't realistically see a way that you get from where we are to bowl eligible. And it includes a loss to Virginia. I just don't. But, it's always a slobber knocker against Virginia. It's always a tight game. And we found ways when we were playing well, 8-9 wins, and we still find ways to lose to Virginia, especially in Charlottesville. So, I'm going to pick Miami to win, but I'm not confident.
And as we close, just to add to the bad Miami information from a different angle, the betting angle, Miami is actually, I think I can verify this. I know that they're 0-6 against, so throw out Bethune-Cookman because that wasn't listed on all the sports books because Miami was too substantial of a favorite. So it did not have a line everywhere. So the other 6 games, Miami has not covered the spread this year.
That is correct, sir. And I'm looking at it, and I will give you another spread stat. Where is it? Miami is dead last in terms of points scored versus the spread. Mm-hmm. So cover points per game. Sorry, in per game. Negative 11.7 points away from covering each game on average. So that is 131 out of 131. And 129th out of 131 in terms of performance against the spread at 14.3%, which is 1 out of 7.
If you just look at the Middle Tennessee and Duke games, it doesn't happen a lot that a 24-point favorite loses by 14, that a 10-point favorite loses by 24. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, folks. Regardless of the result, we'll be back here next Wednesday night, 7:00 Eastern Time, with Cam Underwood from State of the U. We so much appreciate what he delivers. Cam, thank you so much for making this happen and making this work and making this a destination every Wednesday night, man.
Yeah, man, it's a fun part of my week and everything, and always good to be here with you and our loyal listeners. So be sure that you like, subscribe, and send us a review, or hey, show up next week and give us a question or a comment or something. We love all of those. In terms of myself, again, my name is Cam Underwood, managing editor of State of the U, stateoftheu.com, as you see on the screen. Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at The State of the U. My personal Twitter account is at Underwood Sports. Please come on over and fan with us because we're always there to fan with you.
My night is typically over at this point, but 8:30 Penn State, we're going to give them an hour live stream. So head on over to the main channel. We'll talk some Penn State as they take on Ohio State. Big game in the Big Ten.
Big game.
All right, Cam. Thanks so much.
See you.